Well, hello there, and welcome to the final episode of Telile 24/7 for the year 2023. I'm your host, Adam Cook. This week we're going to catch up with the Richmond County Literacy Network and talk about their activities as we head into the new year. And we're going to bring back Telile 24/7's Fast 5 segment with a special guest. But we're going to devote the bulk of the show this week to the municipal council meetings that were held in the run-up to Christmas by Richmond Municipal Council and Port Hawkesbury Town Council. As you might expect, there were quite a few common threads on everything from housing to green hydrogen, and we're going to kick things off with back-to-back segments about how the municipal elections are looming for both municipalities as we head into the new year. You're going to hear from Mayor Brenda Chisholm-Beaton about how Port Hawkesbury might be returning to a hybrid e-voting system. But first of all, we're going to revisit a debate that pops up every so often here in Richmond County. Should the county be governed by a warden chosen from the existing elected councillors, or should Richmond County voters have the right to elect a mayor at large? Richmond County's Deputy Warden Sean Sampson brought up the issue during the latest regular monthly council meeting. We're going to hear from him in a few moments. You're also going to get some reaction from his fellow Isle Madame councillor, Michael Digdon, and some analysis from Richmond Warden Amanda Mombourquette. First of all, let's hear what Deputy Warden Sampson had to say.
I mean, for me, Madam Warden, this question has been lurking for many years now, right? And I guess it seems now that it's going to be a question to have answered with council's next term, right? And looking ahead to the 2028 election. But back in 2019, during part of the strategic plan, that topic was brought up, and there was a survey online that showed that 76% of residents that took that survey were in favor of a mayor. But being that that change had to be implemented 9 months before the municipal election, I think time had ran out on that situation, so it was never followed up on. But for me, I think looking back at our recent boundary review, if we learned anything from our boundary review, is that we shouldn't solely rely on a survey or just a yes or no answer to a question. So for me, I think we have to take the same approach. I mean, when you look at the boundary review, when the first couple of surveys came out, I think the popular support was for 7 councillors instead of 5. But then we all had some public consultations and we engaged the public, and after those engagements and those public consultations, it went to 5 councillors and status quo with a few minor changes to some of our districts. And for me, I think looking forward to our last year in term and looking forward to the 2028 election, I think we got to take that same approach when it comes to the mayor versus warden question. I think I'm going to do my part, and I think we should all do our part to engage the public and inform the public of what that actually means, what the 2 options mean, and then it'll be more of a yes or no survey answer, right? So, yeah, I just wanted to bring that up, and, in my opinion, I think it's an approach that we should take in the future and make sure that we engage our residents, engage the people of Richmond County, and make sure that they have all the information needed to look at that question, right?
While Warden Amanda Mombourquette allowed the conversation to continue at the regular council meeting of December the 18th, she later noted that a small sample size of just under 400 was responsible for the 76% figure quoted by Deputy Warden Sean Sampson from the 2019 strategic planning exercise that was carried out by the previous council.
Sample size is everything, because at the end of the day, there are 8,900 people who are living in Richmond County. And so when you're talking about a sample size that is, that's that low, like as I said, I think it deserves some additional public engagement. I know it was a similar situation when we saw the first results coming in from the boundary review, that we had numbers less than 100 of people who were responding back. And yes, a great percentage of them thought we should make one decision or another, but at the end of the day, the sample size was so small. That's a lot. That's there's a lot at stake when you make these changes. And we didn't want to be making that kind of, like I said, substantive electoral change to Richmond County's governance without making sure we did a more full public consultation. This issue will be the very same.
I actually had people look at it on the agenda and then call me right away to see why we were looking at even considering that, and I said it really wasn't a consideration of council. It was just a question brought by by a constituent. So I think they and I guess to add on to his, I think what we have to do is remind the voters that voted us in our seat that they did so for a reason, and usually it's to speak on their behalf. So again, I agree with the reaching back out to the public and finding out, as opposed to just putting out a survey of why you think it should be. And I think we also want to remind them that when we do that, we have to take our time in setting up that survey, because one thing that I don't know if people realize, but when you go to the mayor versus warden, you can't go back. And another thing is that you could actually have 5 representatives potentially from one district. Depending really, because nobody knows, and depending on it's a vote of numbers, not so much a vote of your district.
So, yeah, Councillor Digdon, it depends on how it's implemented. I know in some towns that many of the councillors there are councillors at large. They do not have districts, but in some of the larger, like the CBRM, for example, they do have councillors in districts, plus also a mayor. So I think it just depends on how it gets rolled out. But you are correct. Once you make the decision to make the switch, you can't go back, kind of thing. Yeah. Thank you for that, pointing that out. Yeah. Deputy Warden?
Yeah, so looking at our boundary review that we just got approved from the UARB board, so in 2028, residents need to know that there will be 5 councillors and a mayor if they vote to go that way. So when it came to the public consultations and information sessions, they more or less voted status quo, 5 councillors. But people have to be informed to know that this boundary review is not changing until the 2032 election. So in 2028, if they decide to go with a mayor, it's going to mean 5 councillors and a mayor, right? So that's what that would mean.
Yeah, I think on the mandated review is only 8 years is the point Councillor Sampson is making.
So in 2028, if they do decide, that we're going to put the mayor in place, or the residents feel they want to have a mayor, it's going to mean 6 people around this table, not 5, right?
Yeah, potentially. I think at the end of the day, the point you're both making is that it's a complex matter. It's not a simple yes or no, right? And so that kind of community engagement would be really key in making sure that we're making a determination that is in the best interest of the county and that reflects the desires of the constituent voters that are here. So
we're elected as district representatives, but we cannot run both options. So if I decide to run for mayor, or anybody around this table decides to run for mayor, that means they're not representing that district. It means they're representing the entire county, right? So just so people are aware. But again, we'll save that for a public discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. And that's a really great point, is that, if you have multiple candidates for mayor, they're not attached to a specific district. And so if you don't win the mayoral seat, you are not at the council table, right? And that is a consideration as well. And the deadline is fast approaching. We are too late, and for all intents and purposes, for this coming election. But at the end of the day, it's a conversation. I think it's a healthy conversation for us to be having. But as we discussed tonight at the table, there's not a yes or no around this that we would want to go out to the public. It's a simple survey result is not going to do it. If we're going to make that kind of substantive change to the electoral system in Richmond County, we need to do an appropriate amount of public engagement, just like we did for the boundary review. The mayor versus warden issue was not within the scope of the work that we needed to do for the Utility and Review Board to meet the requirements of the Municipal Government Act to do that boundary review. But that being said, now that that piece of work is done, we can certainly, we're within that. It's another 8 years before we have to revisit that. So this would be, I guess in the next couple of years, a good time to start that discussion with our residents to see if there truly is an appetite for that, if people feel that once they learn about it and learn what the context of that would look like or could look like, to see if they feel that it's time for us to make that switch. Once you make that switch, you cannot go back to the previous system, right? And so that's certainly a consideration going forward.
Another aspect of the municipal elections that are coming up in just a few months' time in 2024, how should people be casting their vote? In the last municipal election in 2020, Port Hawkesbury found some success by using a hybrid model that combined paper ballots with internet voting. And as the new year approaches, Port Hawkesbury councillors and staff are looking to see whether they should go with that system again, try complete e-voting, or complete paper ballots. Here's Mayor Brenda Chisholm-Beaton to explain.
This municipal term is winding down. We have just a little less than 1 year left, and we're going to be looking at a new municipal election in 2024. So our staff did some considerable work being able to track down what some municipal units are doing across the province with regard to municipal elections. Some are fully electronic voting, some are a hybrid model, and some are just using paper ballots. So yeah, and of course it's a fluid, terrain in terms of what municipalities are doing. For example, I'm hearing that Richmond County is going to be reviewing their electoral process as well, which is great. So that decision again has to fall to our town council to decide what they would like to do. In the past, we've used a hybrid option and had great success with the electronic version. And in our staff report, just for council consideration as the conversation continues, just looking at what the pros are with regard to going to all electronic. And of course, it's back when electronic voting became a little bit more popular, was the whole COVID movement kind of, trying to figure out how do we make a contactless option to make sure democracy continues as it needs to. But of course, it's not even just about that. It's also about the cost of running an election. It's become more and more difficult to secure polling officers and just to create a space and time that accommodates everybody in business hours. Some people work nights, some people work days. So that electronic voting option, certainly has a lot of benefits behind it because you can vote from the comfort of your home in a very inclusive way. So if you can't physically be in a location, it doesn't forgo your ability to vote. So this will definitely be an ongoing discussion at our council table. So we'll determine whether we want to continue with a hybrid model or whether we want to reap as much benefit as possible going all electronic. And anyway, we do have some great holiday reading in front of us to determine, I guess, some of what council would like to do and those discussions that we'll have in the new year.
Council meeting. Speaking to Telile 24/7 following the December 19th council meeting in Port Hawkesbury, Mayor Chisholm-Beaton also reported a pleasant surprise for town officials as a result of the hybrid vote, mainly that some sectors who weren't expected to really take up on electronic voting, including seniors, came out in high numbers, resulting in a 77% voter turnout in 2020.
When we decided to go to a bit more of a hybrid model and incorporate that option for electronic voting, I think that there were some, concerns originally in terms of, technical literacy and that sort of thing. Could people actually get on and vote electronically? Particularly the concern was around seniors, but we were pleasantly surprised by the great reception that we did get, that all ages and all abilities found it extremely easy to cast their vote electronically. So yeah, that gave us a lot of confidence, just getting some of that feedback. And, and already having implemented electronic voting and also in-person voting, we kind of have that background now, that basis to gauge what, we'd like to do going forward. So was it about time we kind of adopted at least an option for electronic voting? Absolutely. So time will tell if we fully implement all electronic and see, what is the future of the town look like in terms of voting in our next municipal election in 2024.
Now, if you watched last week's episode of Telile 24/7, you might remember that we had extensive coverage of offshore wind development and a new green hydrogen action plan that was introduced by the provincial government in mid-December. The government press release featuring this new green hydrogen action plan included quotes from two local municipal leaders, Richmond Warden Amanda Mombourquette and Port Hawkesbury Mayor Brenda Chisholm-Beaton. The two leaders are also co-chairs of the Strait Area Offshore Wind Task Force. So we thought it would be a good idea here on Telile 24/7 to get their comments about what this new green hydrogen action plan means and about the importance of community engagement and getting the opinions and thoughts of local residents as green hydrogen moves forward in the year 2024 and beyond. So here's what the two local leaders had to say.
I think it's a very positive step, honestly, to have an action plan in place for the province of Nova Scotia. I think it sends a clear signal to developers and to, I would say, potential developers that, we mean business when it comes to greening our energy production here in the province. And certainly both Mayor Brenda and I feel that the Strait of Canso has a huge role to play in that process.
Super positive. We want to make sure that we do have a roadmap, that we have we create an enabling environment for growth and development in this new emerging industry. It's very positive to see the already occurring investments in the Strait region as well, particularly around the Strait of Canso. It is exciting times for our region. It's exciting times for all members of the Strait of Canso Offshore Wind Task Force. And also, for our municipality, for the town of Port Hawkesbury. So we're going to continue to do what we can to participate. We do have members of our council that do participate on the Strait of Canso Offshore Wind Task Force. We do have some members that participate on community boards as well that are working with different developers. And working with the Chamber of Commerce and the Cape Breton Partnership to make sure that we fully understand all of the opportunities that are at play, figure out ways on how we can prepare ourselves as municipalities.
And I do think that the actions that they've identified are broad enough in scope that it will allow us to be flexible. People need to remember this is very much a nascent industry. It's emerging. It's brand new, not just in this region, but globally. So there's lots for us to learn and best practices for us to be implementing. So I think it was important for the action plan to be broad enough in scope that it could be flexible, but also specific enough that it was charting a course for growth. And I think if you look at one of the quotes that we provided, that was really what it's about. It really, I think, sets the stage, provides a good foundation for growth of the sector in Nova Scotia and specifically the Strait of Canso. So we're looking forward to continuing to work with Nova Scotia Natural Resources and Renewables on what comes next, because this this was the easy part. Now the hard work begins.
So there are ways that we can lend to that enabling environment for new emerging industries, be it offshore wind, be it green hydrogen. So we definitely need to roll up our sleeves as municipalities to make sure that we are part of that success.
I have to say, the consultations during the process of the Green Hydrogen Action Plan being developed was led by Clean Nova Scotia, and they really did a great job, I thought, of engaging with different, folks in different regions, and we were pleased to be able to provide some input to that. One of the questions that I continue to ask is, this Green Hydrogen Action Plan, what is it, what does it mean for developers? What does it mean for communities? We have to be really cognizant of the fact that when there's energy development development's happening, it's happening in communities. It's not happening in a bubble. And so we need to make sure that those communities are connected.
So I definitely encourage people to, pay attention to the news. If there are opportunities to take part in different information sharing workshops, please do so. And certainly engage as much as possible. I'm really excited about the opportunities around innovation, in particular around new trades and training and job opportunities, around potential pivots for small and medium-sized businesses to be able to engage in these new emerging industries. It's a really exciting time for the Strait of Canso, and from supply chain to really population growth. I mean, isn't it a wonderful position to be in that we weren't in 10 years ago?
The call for the mayor and the warden for local residents to take part in community engagement sessions came just a few weeks after the Cape Breton Partnership and Net Zero Atlantic partnered on several offshore wind information sessions that took place around Cape Breton Island. Warden Mombourquette attended the session that took place at the Discoos Civic Improvement Centre on December 11th. At that time, several local residents, including many in the fishery sector, expressed concern that wind turbines and other infrastructure involving offshore wind and green hydrogen development could coexist among a community that has traditionally thrived on the fishery. Here's how Warden Mombourquette addressed the situation following the December 18th Richmond Council meeting in Irishat.
The offshore wind engagement sessions that have been happening. We had one in Discoos on Monday, one in St. Peter's on Monday evening, and they were not really a big crowd attending, but the people who attended had really interesting questions and frankly very valid concerns that they need to have brought to the table, because we need to make sure that we're not. I've been saying this since the beginning. Our fishers need to have a voice. Other ocean users need to have a voice at the table to make sure that we're not doing detriment to one industry for the sake of another. How can we all coexist and find ways to thrive? And we know it's been happening in other regions. We just need to find what's the right fit for Nova Scotia. So that commitment from the provincial government really has been, nothing short of stellar, in my opinion, on these particular clean energy files. It's certainly something that they've demonstrated a commitment to in releasing both the offshore wind roadmap, but now also this new green hydrogen action plan. Well, I think if we can work together to make oil and gas happen in Nova Scotia waters, there is no reason we can't work together to make clean energy happen in Nova Scotia waters. So I'm extremely optimistic that we can, but I can't stress enough how important those conversations are, that we make sure that our fishing community is engaged, that they're being heard, that we're considering all of the things that they know as traditional and local knowledge, and that our Mi'kmaq fishers are also connected and Mi'kmaq communities, and so there's a lot of work on the engagement side to be done. But at the end of the day, that's exactly what those engagement sessions are about. It's providing a place where people can come, talk about their concerns, and talk about what's exciting too, right? So I think there's a balance that needs to be found, and I think if we work together, all together, then we're more likely to be able to find it.
And as the new year approaches, Warden Mombourquette and Mayor Chisholm-Beaton are hoping the public will stay engaged, but at the same time, they're hoping that the provincial government will continue to stick to their commitment to develop green hydrogen, both in the Strait area and across the province.
I can't see past the excitement at this point, really. And we know our future is green. And we know that this is 100% unequivocally a nation-building opportunity here in the Strait of Canso, and here in Atlantic Canada. So we are part of that green energy paradigm shift. And isn't it wonderful that we are going to be able to have options around green hydrogen, around offshore wind, to meet all those deadlines. Around net zero and around transitioning off of coal. I see that all as positive. And of course, we want to make sure that not just municipalities, but also multiple stakeholders in our community, in our region, fully understand how, the role that they can play in this emerging industry as well as others.
We have regular check-ins with our provincial counterparts to make sure that we're all abreast of what the latest developments are, to make sure that we're considering things like water supplies and transitioning to a different kind of energy. You'll soon see. Right now we have we have a proposal or a request for proposals out on the potential development of the Strait of Canso, or I should say the province of Nova Scotia offshore wind research center of excellence. We see a role for the Strait of Canso, obviously, in that. But these are the kinds of projects that we're looking to the province and to the federal government to support. We're in talks with them now to try to make sure that when we're planning for this kind of development on the ground in Nova Scotia, that everyone is at the table providing some financial support, but also providing that advisory support and those connections as well. So I'm really optimistic that on the hydrogen side, those discussions are going to continue. They've been extremely productive so far, and I think have led directly to our ability to be able to communicate with the public about what's going on.
The issue of housing was another common thread between the council sessions held in Port Hawkesbury and Richmond County just last week. At the Richmond Municipal Council meeting, which took place at the Municipal building in Arishat on Monday, December the 18th, Warden Amanda Mombourquette offered an update from the Strait-Richmond Housing Matters Coalition. Warden Mombourquette is the chair of that coalition. Not only did she have some insight on what that particular organization is doing, but following the meeting, she gave us here at Telile 24/7 some more thoughts about housing in the area, including potential partnerships with a new not-for-profit housing cooperative set up in the last few months by the Strait Area Chamber of Commerce. First of all, let's go to the council session on December the 18th for some remarks from Warden Mombourquette.
Currently, there are a number of volunteers around that table. Some of those volunteers include our housing support workers for the region, and they are employed by an organization called Cape Breton Community Housing Association, I believe. It's based out of the Sydney area. And I know in June we had plans for their CEO, our director, Fred DeVoe, to come and present to our council. I think there were some scheduling conflicts and then things, it didn't happen in June for us. And then, of course, summer hit. So I'm thinking we may want to ask him. I'm going to restart that conversation to see if he would like to come back. We do have currently 2 housing support workers in the region, and really grateful for that work. But I think it would be a great opportunity for us to learn a little bit more about the scope of what they do here, and what some of the challenges are that they're facing. We do have 2 housing support workers in the region who are doing an absolutely fantastic job working with some of the most vulnerable people in our communities to make sure that they have beds to sleep in and places to live. That work is incredibly difficult in a market where there's not a lot of housing options. We need to understand more about how we can support them. So we're going to be looking forward to having that conversation with that organization's leadership to find out what else we could be doing.
During the December 18th regular council session for Richmond Municipal Council, Warden Mombourquette also took some time to congratulate members of the Strait-Richmond Housing Matters Coalition that have been making a difference locally and across the province.
I do want to take a minute to do a shout out and a quick kudos to both Lisa McHugh and Chloe Fox for their work. In the last 10 months alone, they have been able to get approvals for housing and rent subsidies for 75 people in the last 10 months. That's a huge undertaking. It's a big piece of work. So, I had in my notes from the meeting, as of 8:45 a.m. on Wednesday morning, they're saving tenants in our area over $18,000 per month collectively. That's a big, big deal, in a community that has its fair share of vulnerable folks on fixed incomes, etc. They also noted that they are able to find places, I won't say easy, but easier now than compared to a year ago because of the relationships that they've been able to establish with landlords, and landlords reaching out to them when properties become available. So I just want to say kudos to both Lisa and Chloe for the work that they're doing. The reality is that they're providing this service in a very rural area of Cape Breton, which means they have to do a lot of traveling to meet people where they are and to find solutions for folks. So also wanted to do a shout out to Cheryl McDaniel, who is our representative on the Nova Scotia Nonprofit Housing Association. That's a brand new organization that has recently been put together through, actually it was spearheaded through the Build Together project based out of Antigonish. They've hired a program and membership coordinator, they have a new executive director, and they have over 60 members, of which Strait-Richmond Housing Matters Coalition is one. And I know that Cheryl has been representing us very well at that provincial level, which I think keeps us really in tune with the potential programs and opportunities for partnerships that are coming up.
The warden also acknowledged the work of the Strait Area Chamber of Commerce, which has been working over the past few months to set up a not-for-profit housing cooperative to help with local affordable housing developments.
So the Housing Coalition is an organization that's been on the go now for quite a number of years. And at the end of the day, though, it's an informal organization. It's essentially a network of people who have an interest in developing more housing solutions in the area. But it's a lot of service providers, public health officials, folks like myself who have a political and community-based interest in making a change. We're not registered as a society, and so at the end of the day, that's the piece that's missing in our community, is to have a registered not-for-profit housing association that is regional in nature, looks at the southern Cape Breton area, and works on direct solutions, as opposed to the work of the Housing Coalition, which is more around advocacy, building understanding, sharing information, ensuring that service providers are all working hand in hand. What we're missing is really a non-profit housing association that can access government programs, that can work with developers on affordable and other types of housing solutions for our communities. So we're really looking forward to the work of the Chamber of Commerce. That's a discussion that I've been involved in since the beginning, and really excited to see them taking a leadership role in getting that housing cooperative kind of developed and on the go. Because really, at the end of the day, it takes an organization to really say, we're going to be the lead on this, we're going to make this happen. So I think I'm very optimistic about what they're going to be able to do, because it tends to be an organization that punches above its weight on a regular basis for lots of other things. So looking forward to the results on that.
For Warden Mombourquette and the members of the Strait-Richmond Housing Matters Coalition, that optimism extends to housing overall in 2024, but it won't come without hard work.
And I definitely am more optimistic about it right now than I was this time a year ago, but there's no silver bullet here. This is going to take, work by all levels of government. It is going to take work, from the private sector, from the nonprofit sector, communities, to really get, to start to move the needle on this. We have a housing assessment report that shows hundreds of, of houses that we are short, of units that we are short in our community of Richmond County alone. So we know there's a lot of work to be done. But at the end of the day, the availability of government programs and the collaboration that's happening now between a lot of different levels of government and community, I think are going to help us take that step so that we can begin to really start to see some positive and tangible impacts at the local level here in Richmond County.
Now, even here within the Strait area, differing municipal units are coming up with a variety of ideas to try to deal with the housing issue. For example, in Port Hawkesbury, town councillors and staff are currently mulling over the launch of a new commercial development district on Reeve Street. If it's approved, this new district would not only hope to stimulate the local economy, but it could lead to further housing development in Port Hawkesbury, particularly within this proposed new district. We're going to keep covering this issue well into the new year, but to kick off our coverage, here are some comments about the possibility of housing developments within this new commercial development district from the Mayor of Port Hawkesbury, Brenda Chisholm-Beaton.
The premise of this bylaw is to encourage or spur on economic development where historically maybe there's been a bit of stagnation with regard to new business development and really opportunities around growth. So we have identified a perimeter or a zone, if you will, for commercial development with several opportunities for properties that we see opportunities for commercial growth. So this bylaw will create that enabling environment and the legislative framework that we need to allow for that. So it would be phased over 10 years. That would create some tax incentives for folks who would like to develop within that given zone. We will, of course, go through a public process. So there'll be opportunity for citizens to weigh in if they like the idea, if they have some reservations about the idea. But at the end of the day, we're really hoping that this commercial zone that we have identified will see some significant growth. They're really legacy pieces of property. We would love to be able to see, that significant developments, for many years. We would like to see new accommodations. We'd like to see potential mixed use with commercial and perhaps residential above to help kind of bridge the gap with our housing needs here in town. And certainly if you look at the zone that we've identified, it's right downtown. It's a great place for people to live, work, and play. So we want to make sure that we have a robust downtown area in Port Hawkesbury, and we really hope that this new bylaw will spur on the growth that we would like to see.
And with steps now underway for Port Hawkesbury Town Council to move forward on this commercial development district in a portion of Reeve Street, Mayor Chisholm-Beaton is hoping that this can be one small step towards addressing housing issues that have arisen in the town over the past decade and for many years beforehand.
10 years ago, we didn't have as big of a housing challenge. And now we do have a housing challenge, but it's actually a housing opportunity. So how do we, seize that opportunity in meaningful ways so that we're dealing with housing needs all across the housing spectrum?
As 2023 turns into 2024, Port Hawkesbury is continuing to set its sights on waterfront development. For example, construction of a new active transportation trail that would connect Granville Street to Sunset Park at the connection of Granville and Prince Street is continuing even as we speak. And there is a new stainless steel sculpture at Sunset Park called The Wave, created by Cape Breton artist Gordon Kennedy. This all comes as Mayor Brenda Chisholm-Beaton has extended her personal congratulations to Port Hawkesbury's Waterfront Advisory Committee. Here's the mayor to talk about why she feels this committee deserves a thumbs up and what we can expect in the new year.
And of course, there was a lot of planning that went into the results that people are seeing now, and just seeing the new structures down on the waterfront that will be kiosks in the upcoming season. The wonderful statue that is creating waves of conversation, if you will, and in just that accessible active transportation infrastructure, which is so critical to ensuring our community continues to enjoy an active, healthy lifestyle. I mean, these are huge priorities for our council. And yes, sometimes that planning phase feels like, okay, what's happening, town of Port Hawkesbury? Like, they want to certainly see some of those changes and investments happening at the waterfront. So now, after all that work of our Waterfront Advisory Committee and our town staff and some of our councillors that are also represented on that committee, they've rolled up their sleeves. They've gone through those planning processes. We've gone through community consultations to try to understand what people in our community and businesses would like to see at our waterfront. And now we're at that wonderful stage where change is actually happening. And isn't that wonderful? So it's great that citizens see that tangible, physical investment and infrastructure happening. But what they might not have seen over the last couple of years is that hard tabletop planning work. Sometimes you want to give credit where credit is due. That when people do see these things being built and change happening, I just want to make sure that our citizens understand all of the important work that goes before that. And when you do see a new thing, how much time, energy, talent, and volunteer work went into that installation. So definitely want to thank all of our town staff and all of the hard work of the community members and the elected members and staff that are represented on the Port Hawkesbury Waterfront Development Advisory Committee. It's wonderful to see change happening, especially positive change that's, like I said, making waves of positive energy in the community. And people are super proud of Port Hawkesbury and super proud of the waterfront. And it's nice to see that development continuing to occur. And it'll be a phased approach. There's more change to come. But it's nice to see, the progress as it occurs. Port Hawkesbury as a municipality, in addition to the other 4 municipalities here on the island of Cape Breton, in addition to the 5 Unama'ki communities here in Unama'ki, Cape Breton is on the global stage. Unama'ki is on the global stage in terms of a destination. And I don't know how many awards we've received as the #1 island, certainly in North America, and top 10 in the world. So certainly we want to make sure that we are creating some destination pieces here in Port Hawkesbury so that we can contribute to that global stage as a destination. Developing our waterfront, I think, is a pretty critical piece. But I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the amazing community park that we have in our town, and all the work that has gone into our town over the last couple of years in terms of wayfinding, so that when folks do come to maybe make Port Hawkesbury their exploration destination, where they may come and partake in some of what we have to offer as a town, but they can also use Port Hawkesbury as a base to explore other areas of the island, and just that wayfinding piece, so that people do understand where's all of our hidden gems in the town of Port Hawkesbury. Our nature trails, like 10 kilometers of nature trails. We have so much going on. Our waterfront and the Strait of Canso Yacht Club, they're growing and developing as well. So I feel like we are really honing in on that tourism potential in a major way, and it's nice to see the positive changes occurring at our waterfront. It's definitely an important puzzle piece.
We will be continuing our coverage here at Telile Community Television of the activities of the Richmond County Literacy Network over the coming weeks. And to help kick things off in that regard, here's an interview that our own station manager Becky Bourinot recently conducted with the new executive director of the Richmond County Literacy Network, Mitch David.
You were hired in September as the executive director for the Richmond County Literacy Network. And how is that going?
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Well, it's going really well. I started, I was hired on September 6th, and September 11th, I started my journey with the Literacy Network, and it's been very challenging, but very rewarding. We're getting someplace, so.
So
yeah,
where do you think
it's headed?
Where do you think the Literacy Network is headed?
Well, right now we have 2 courses, 2 digital courses. The first one is, the basic course is digital wellness. Actually, I should say that in reverse. Gwen Smith is actually teaching the main course, which is the basic digital literacy. And basically, it just talks about computer in its totality. It starts from starting your computer on to programming and whatever you need to know about the computer. So that's going on right now, and it goes till, well, actually till June of 24. Then we have digital wellness, and we have Anne-Marie Powers teaching that one, but she will go to your hall, to your wherever, to your house to help you. However, we have a classroom, so people are coming in to whatever you need to know about computers, here it is.
You see, that's very important. There are so many people, I mean, I know people who don't want to admit that they don't know anything and may feel a little left behind, but you know, it's all about learning. And if you have somebody,
Absolutely.
see, if you have somebody like the Literacy Network to go to do that, it's empowering, you know, and
Absolutely.
it's so important because the way technology is going, you kind of have to know about computers no matter what you do.
Absolutely.
I mean, you have to be able to talk to your grandchildren, right?
Yeah, no kidding.
And your grandchildren know more because they actually have computers in school. Like
They are the experts.
well, they are the future.
Or they think they are.
Well,
anyway.
and they are the future.
Yeah,
I mean,
no,
you end up
absolutely.
looking cool because you know what they're talking about. You know, that's the cool part about it. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with learning. And I mean, the Literacy Network has always been really hands-on with their courses. So good on that. I'm glad to hear those are going on, and I'm sure there'll be many other courses to come too.
Well, in all actual fact, you know, when you're running a non-for-profit, you get into these partnerships. So not only are we in partnership with the Nova Scotia government, which is better known as NASAL, for adult learners, we are in partnership with DCS, Department of Community Services. And we just actually sent in some proposals to help people with literacy. It could be cooking programs, financial programs, whatever.
Right.
So right now we have roughly 4 proposals out, and we're just waiting for word that and I'm pretty confident that we will get that. So, I mean, those partnerships are, well, it's very similar to the partnership that we have with Telile.
Right.
The halls in the area. Everybody's sort of doing their part to help us succeed. And it's a pretty amazing thing. So I've been on the job for almost 3 months and things are looking up. I really believe that.
Well, everything is, when you first start, you know, it can be a little daunting, but if you put your mind to it, I mean, you had big shoes to fill there too. You had
Oh my
Millie
Lord.
Hatt.
Yeah.
Millie Hatt, one of my all-time favorite people, hard-working.
A star.
She is indeed a star.
Absolutely a star.
And you know, we'd be remiss in not speaking about Millie Hatt and the
100%.
contributions that she's made in the way that the Literacy Network has hung in there and put out great programs. So she set the foundation, and I'm sure that, you know, many people have benefited as a result of those programs.
We just accept it, and I invited Millie to come with me to the Chamber Awards night gala, which happened on the 15th of November. She came with me, and we accepted the 25-year award for service. And you know, I was touched, to be quite honest with you, to bring Millie with me because she's the reason we're all here.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
I could never deny her contribution to Richmond literacy because she's the reason we're here.
Oh yes.
So,
yes, I know.
Amazing individual.
Now your office now is in St. Peter's now, correct?
It is.
Right.
Yeah. We started off in Ayrshire, and at the time, that was back in September of 23, when the Richmond Literacy came back. And we started in Ayrshire, and I knew that I had to move that office to St. Peter's. We didn't quite have an office in St. Peter's yet, so Blair Martell was the guy we went to. We started off in another little office, but that sort of didn't work out. And so we moved back to Blair's old office, which is next to the library. Unit B, it's on Granville Street. It's sort of center St. Peter's. And it's an amazing little classroom office, you know. Yeah, it's where we're at right now, and we shut down in Ayrshire, but we're central St. Peter's. So things are going really well there too as well.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, for example, with Anne-Marie being able to actually go to people's houses or do things
Sure.
in community halls or online, really.
Yeah.
I mean, that opens up some doors anyway.
It really does.
So your world is an office, you know?
Absolutely.
If you really think about
Absolutely.
it. Everywhere is your address.
We have some really special instructors. Gwen, who's been there, Gwen Smith, who's been there for just about 8 years, and doing really good work. And Anne-Marie that just started not so long ago, over a month ago. Those two ladies are doing fantastic.
And they care.
They really do care.
I know Gwen Smith.
That's the key.
And I know Gwen Smith well, and I actually recently have been having more conversations with Anne-Marie, and she's wonderful.
She
so you're
truly
really
is.
lucky to have
Yeah.
two very qualified people.
Absolutely.
Yeah, people who are communicative, right? I mean, that's
Absolutely.
you absolutely need that.
Yeah.
People who are fun to be around, you
Yeah.
know, and knowledgeable.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. So
So you also have a new
Things are
board of
going really
directors.
well. yeah, we have a new board of directors. I don't know if I should name them because
No.
I may forget a name.
And they could change. And I mean, you know, anybody can actually look up all of that information on your new Facebook, your new webpage, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's on our new webpage.
Yeah.
Our new webpage actually got built by a local group, Highland Links.
Yep, shop local.
Shop local.
Very important.
Always shop local.
Absolutely.
But they rebuilt it. Myself and Cal from Island Links, you know, had many meetings on it. But I think that the product is
Right.
really improved, and it just shows what we're doing. And all we can do is build on it. We also have a Facebook page. Both sites, you can go to Richmond County Literacy Network, and that's it. You're right there. And you'll see everything that we're doing.
What's your big picture? You know, like, you know, literacy means more than just reading, right? A lot of people are confused by that. Literacy can cover, like you say, financial, you know, there's all this other side of literacy.
The bigger picture, I think, is, of course, always working with the Nova Scotia government, NASAL, to continue the programs that we have. But we can build on the programs that we have as well. So, you know, the future is getting new Nova Scotia E3 courses out there. Whether that's online, in-person, classroom, whatever, both work. So that's sort of our bread and butter. But the expansion of that is working with DCS and working with other groups to create more, you know, financial, cooking, whatever, literacy. It's all about literacy.
It is, and you know, the idea of partnering with other community groups and different organizations is so important. Like any small community or county, it's becoming more and more important to band together. You know, the volunteer
Absolutely.
base. The volunteer base is getting smaller. You know, the younger people are too busy. The older people are, you know, they're getting a little long in the tooth. And you know, sometimes while they have great intention, they just can't do it anymore. And a lot of times, because they've done it for so long, they feel bad about giving it up. You know, and put their own health at risk at some point. That can happen and does. So, yeah, partnering. I mean, there are so many great organizations anyway that you can partner with, and many hands lighten the load. And sometimes, especially because some of the new boards that are popping up are younger, new fresh ideas. We just have to be willing to accept those new fresh ideas in this digital age. Because if you don't, they may know something that you don't because you haven't lived, you haven't grown in their part of the world. Well, while they're coming up, the way they're educated is different than the way that I was educated or you were educated. So, it's all about everybody working together and bridging that generational gap.
Absolutely.
And,
I want to
great.
give a shout out to our board of directors.
Oh, yes.
They have been absolutely phenomenal. Another reason why Richmond Literacy is around, and that we were able to accept that 25-year award. They're just amazing. They've really banned it. And we've done a lot together, and we just
it's a worthy
can
cause.
only work on it, right?
It's a worthy cause.
Build on it.
Worthy cause, I mean, it's so important to this community.
Absolutely.
If you think about it, like 25 years, that's fantastic. Telile, for example, will be 30 next year.
Yeah.
Where would you really be if you didn't have a TV station in the middle of a fishing
100%.
village? Well, you don't know until you lose it. So we work really hard. And we also are working on partnerships with other groups, the same as literacy. And we have worked with literacy before in partnership. And that's what you have to do. You have to be grateful for what you've got. I mean,
Totally grateful.
I'm very grateful to that board of directors for bringing literacy back. So good on you for being there. And I think it's fantastic. And I wish you guys only the best.
No,
only
I
the
really,
best.
really appreciate it, Becky, and look forward to our continued successful partnership.
And I'm happy for the community.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
without the Literacy Network, it would be a big void.
It really would be.
Because where would a person go?
Yeah.
What are you going to do? Some people,
absolutely.
how can people who are trying to learn computers go online to take a course on how to learn a computer? If you really think about that, it doesn't make any sense. And hands-on, that's the way some people prefer to go. Some people are very comfortable learning, taking the alternate with social media, but, person like me, I like the hands-on stuff. So best of luck.
Thank you so much, Becky.
You're
really
welcome.
appreciate it.
If you've watched our sister program Roundtable, you may have seen a feature interview that I recently conducted with one of the newest senators for Nova Scotia, former Cape Breton-Canso MP and former Consul General to New England, Rodger Cuzner. Well, we thought we might ask Senator Cuzner to take part in Telile 24/7's infamous game, the Fast Five. So here is how one of Canada's newest senators answered the crazy questions that I lobbed at him over the next couple of minutes. And joining us for a very special edition of the Fast Five, we're pleased to welcome Senator Rodger Cuzner back to our airwaves at Telile. Senator Cuzner, you're the first senator to ever play this game. Are you all ready for the Fast Five?
Ready to go. Lock the
All
load.
right, let's do it. First one's a gimme, Habs or Leafs?
Leafs.
Yep, there we go. Short answer, I knew that was coming. Coffee, tea, or neither?
Coffee in the mornings, tea in the afternoon.
Ah, there you go. Balancing out the caffeine. Smart. Smart. All right. Next question. I have seen this movie at least 5 times. I would gladly watch it another 50 times. What is that movie?
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
That is a great selection and one I'm overdue to see. So thank you for the recommendation. I'll watch that over the holidays. Good stuff.
Could I go close second? Forrest Gump.
There we are. The Senate is as the Senate does. Right on. Okay, good stuff. Next up. We might edit that out, or maybe not. Question number 4. Your dream vacation.
Pretty simple. I'd say British Columbia is pretty cool to visit. We have family out there too, so we do BC, I think.
All right. I personally have never been to BC and would love to get out there, so I'm glad you gave me a good recommendation. That's great.
There's so many beautiful places in Canada, and I know we like to go south, but There's so many fabulous spots across this country.
Exactly. Hard to narrow them down, sure. And last question on the Fast Five, talking about the Christmas tree from Cape Breton and from Nova Scotia to Boston. So let me ask you, Senator Rodger Cuzner, would you rather be a forest or a tree?
I'm okay with group dynamics, so let's go with the forest.
That works well in the Senate, especially the current version of the Senate. That's great. I should have asked you whether you'd rather be Forrest Gump or a tree, I suppose. That's a whole other story. All right.
Yeah.
There, Senator Rodger Cuzner, you are now known. Everybody has heard the answers to these deep and probing questions. Thank you for joining me on the Fast Five today.
Good stuff, buddy. Thanks for the invite.
And there you have it. That wraps up this week's edition of Telile 24/7. Thank you for tuning in, and a special thanks to my interview guests this week, Brenda Chisholm-Beaton, Amanda Mombourquette, and Rodger Cuzner. And thank you to our station manager, Becky Bourinot, for her interview with Mitch David of the Richmond County Literacy Network. If you have any thoughts about what you've seen over the past hour here on Telile 24/7, or you'd just like to make suggestions for a future edition of the show, feel free to contact me directly or contact Telile Community Television in Arishat. And be sure to follow Telile on social media. For now, I'm Adam Cook. Thank you for watching Telile 24/7 this week and this year. We look forward to seeing you early in 2024 with brand new material, and we wish you a happy new year in the meantime. Bye for now.